Welcome back to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. Just got to excuse me, I'm a little under the weather today, but I got to get this out for January 14th, as Dennys has a show at Leica Gallery LA on January 15th that everybody should go to. Today's guest is Dennys Ilic, a Los Angeles-based photographer whose career sits at the intersection of cinema, celebrity, and deep human portraiture. With a background in cinematography, Dennys has lived multiple creative lives inside the film and photography worlds. He shot the international multi-award winning Face to Face for director Michael Reimer and lends the first digital featured film in India, before spending the last 18 years building a prolific career as a professional photographer, working across film, television, magazines, and music. Dennys is best known for his edgy, soulful portraits that cut through celebrity and capture something honest and unguarded in his subjects. His portfolio reads like the who's who of modern cinema and culture. It includes Daniel Radcliffe, Jason Momoa, Halle Berry, Viola Davis, Keanu Reeves, Glenn Close, Ryan Reynolds, Cindy Crawford, Sandra Bullock, Melissa McCarthy, Carl Urban, Rosario Dawson, Lawrence Fishburne, Mary McDonnell, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kevin Hart, and so many more, as well as influential creatives like Joel Silver, David S. Gower, and Peter Jackson. His work has been commissioned by major studios, publications, and brands including Warner Brothers, Netflix, CBS, HBO, People Magazine, Vogue Italia, Goop, HGTV, McLaren Automotive, and countless others, along with musicians like Seal, Alanis Morissette, AJ McLean, Lance Bass, and Shinedown. For 5 years, Dennys photographed Daniel Radcliffe for Warner Brothers, creating covers and editorial imagery used in hundreds of international publications connected to the Harry Potter franchise and Daniel's subsequent film work. Beyond assignments, Dennys is also a published artist, having produced 5 successful hardcover photography books with a Star Trek Discovery coffee table book currently in development. In 2017, he was invited to exhibit at the iconic Leica Gallery in Hollywood, and that exhibition still holds the attendance record as of 2024. Most recently, Leica selected his iconic Entwined image for their 2023 International Photographic Auction in Vienna. But at the core of all of this is a deeper story, one about longevity, evolution, pressure, creativity, and what it means to keep making meaningful work at the highest level. This is a powerful, grounded conversation about craft, resilience, and seeing people, not just names. Now let's get to the show.
Hi, my name's Dennys Ilic. I'm a photographer from Australia, and I'm actually coming to you from Australia right now. But I'm based in Los Angeles, and I work in film and TV industry.
You've had a pretty amazing career as far as being a filmmaker and a photographer.
Yeah,
You've worked with some incredible people. I
yeah,
was just browsing your website before we got on.
yeah.
Everybody's favorite, Jason Momoa.
Yeah,
You know.
it's a bit of a checkered career.
Did you work on C,
In a
like
good
when it
way.
was shot in Canada here?
No, I actually worked on Frontier,
Okay.
and and that's kind of there's always a little bit of confusion because Jason wanted me on C after we did Frontier to bring in his guy, his photographer, and also because I had book publishing experience, and we wanted to do a book, but the director had his own guy. And I remember we were in Toronto doing some stuff, and we were at for the Toronto Comic Con, and I was hanging out with him, and I remember we were about to go to dinner, and I can hear Jason on his phone in the bathroom. He had a shower, and he comes out, and he's like got like a towel in his hair, and he's got a towel, and he's just dripping wet, and he's just pacing up and down the apartment saying, "You got to get this guy on the show. He's fantastic." Like he was just begging to have me on that show, but we just couldn't make it happen, unfortunately. But the look and feel that he has on Frontier and C are so similar, even though they're quite, C is a sci-fi, Frontier is a historical piece. Um, that people look at the Frontier, because it doesn't age either.
Yeah.
So people look at the Frontier stuff and they think that it's from C as well. So I sometimes I correct them, sometimes I don't. Yeah.
So
So yeah.
that's incredible. Like working while he was here in filming,
Hmm.
I was running a bicycle shop, and somebody brought in one of his bikes to get fixed that nobody could
Yeah.
fix. So that's my claim to
Yeah.
fame
Yeah.
is I made his
Yeah.
bike
Yeah.
work
He
again.
actually, mate, he loves his bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you remember the first time you realized that cinema or photography was part of you, like how it just connected with you?
Yeah, look, I've always, even as a kid, I've loved movies, and I grew up, being in love with Star Trek and things like that. And I I think as I started getting into creating images, I always applied that love and that cinematic feel to my home videos and my photography as well, because they're photography and cinematography are interchangeable. You know good photographers make good cinematographers and vice versa, sort of thing. So, but as a kid, I've always loved film and TV, and then I always gravitated to having friends that were passionate about that as well. My life kind of didn't lead me into working in that area from a young age, because we kind of do what we think our parents make our parents happy, and you end up in working a cube farm to save money to buy a house, have kids, get married, and die. Um, and I learned that that wasn't what I wanted to do. But and time really makes the shift really weird. I have uh, trying to apply the timeline of where I was a cinematographer and a photographer is difficult. I kind of forget the order of things a little bit, but they were a little bit of a parallel thing. And I do remember quite clearly that I was working in a retail store selling cameras when I bought my first DSLR, and I was like 40 years old, So I kind of really started following, the photography bent very, very late in my life.
That's interesting. I mean, it's same for me. I started, man, I'm 51 now, and I started
Mm,
in 2019.
yeah, and you're a
And
baby.
yeah, it's been a very, very quick rise to
Mm,
starting to figure out, me and understanding how I want to capture the world and what I want
yeah,
to do with my
yeah,
photography.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I always like hearing when people are kind of like, man, I was 40. Okay,
Mm,
cool. I got lots of
yeah,
time. I'm good.
yeah,
Like I'm here.
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
make it happen. The show has
yeah,
been
yeah,
amazing as far as
yeah.
connecting me
That's
with
great.
fantastic people.
Mm.
Um, so,
Yeah,
you know,
and that's we probably should save it to the end, but my one greatest wisdom, which I feel like I'm the proof of that, is it's never too late to do what your heart wants you to do. And the other one is that everything great in your life is going to come from other human beings,
yep.
and good people are the number one most important resource in your life, and that you should never fail to pay attention to, and that's where I am. Why I am where I am now is because of um, the influence and kindness of other people. You know, as somebody starting off as a photographer at 40 years old, I got there's a lot of things were right place, right time, and given breaks from good people.
And that's part of my whole theory now is I'm gonna just try to say as yes as often as possible.
Mm. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to build a
Saying yes is
community.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, build a
Mm.
community of amazing people just that
Yeah.
are there as support, help each other, trying to get
Mm.
away from that
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
backstabbing part of the way things used to be. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Curating your family is your number one priority, especially when you're coming into a new town as well. Like, for me coming from Australia to LA, just curating that connection with good people is really important. And then sharing those people with other newcomers,
yeah.
so that they don't have as hard a time as you did.
I love that. I love the willingness to be like, hey, like people are
Mm.
important. Getting a group of good people is the greatest way to move forward because
Yeah.
everybody's there to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So do you remember your first big shoot that you were on for a celebrity that it was like number
Mm.
one and it was your go-to? Do you remember how
Um,
it felt to get that experience?
yeah, I think because the way it kind of started for me was I was going to movie premieres and taking pictures on the red carpet with my new Canon camera at the time, and it was like a 10D or something like that. Paid $6,000 for a 6 megapixel camera, and I was sending those images to the publicist at the Warner Roadshow equivalent in Australia, and making them black and white and making them look really good. And they actually started hiring me because on the strength of those photographs to actually do that specifically for them and shoot at the after parties and things like that. And then, I got flown to New Zealand to cover the third Lord of the Rings shoot, a premiere, I should say, and doing shots with, just beautiful shots of all the cast and crew there, and doing stuff on the third Matrix film, and on the strength of that sort of more photojournalistic work that I was doing for them, I was given the opportunity to do all the publicity images for the release of, I can't remember now, the third or fourth Harry Potter film. So that was actually my first really big client photo shoot where I was hired as a photographer and given a brief, and then I gave them, my brief and input on what we were going to do. And I was given Daniel Radcliffe for an entire day to create. Their brief was we needed 30 different looks. So it wasn't like, okay, this is my idea. We're going to do this with him. He's going to be on a boat and blah, 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 and that's a shoot. It was like we needed to do 30, like they needed to be able to farm those images off to dozens of different publications so it looks like they had their shoot with him. So it was a really big deal because we had to hire, I hired and shut down one of the biggest theme parks in Melbourne, and kept all the staff on all day, and we were building sets that looked like New York apartments, and so we had clothes and we'd go over there, and we'd have clothes and we'd go over there, and we'd have clothes, and this is where he looked like a really cool sexy young adult, and this is where he's just a teenage kid, and so all, and we serviced like 150 magazines out of that shoot, I think. So yeah,
Wow.
so that was the first big job. And then, they liked what I did enough that we went, yeah, excuse me, got a bit of bug in my throat. They liked what we did enough that we went back and did the same thing 3 times again. So yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So were you responsible for all the different looks on set that day? Like, did you come
Yeah,
up with the
what
concepts?
yeah, we obviously you hire a stylist, and you consult with them with what you want to do. So I'm not a clothes guy, but I say, look, I'd really like to have that New York apartment that has you know, the wet, stained walls, the Bronx sort of thing. And then
Yeah.
we had the high level, um, apartment where it's somebody that's into music and has their own instruments and guitars and things like that. And so, yeah, can't take the entire, can never take, the credit for all that because a lot of that kind of work is way above my pay grade. So,
It's incredible to hear. Like, I never would have expect like a day of shooting could lead to
yeah,
so many different outlets using images that
yeah.
were created.
hmm Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
and
process, that's a neat process to hear
yeah,
about.
We did that for the first. We did the first two of those in Australia, and then we did the third one in London. So it was always about finding locations that could just give you completely different look and feel to the whole thing. So mm,
Amazing. And I know recently when we started talking about getting a date set up to record the show,
mm,
you were recording with Alanis. You were doing all the
hmm
photos for Alanis.
yeah, yeah.
That must have been a fun experience.
That was an interesting one because I do work with Alanis a lot and tour with her, and they just I go and do the rock photographer shots, stuff on stage, and all that gets processed out to, and it goes to sometimes to magazines, to social media, everything. But when we were talking, we're doing a very unique show in Las Vegas where I think people thought they were coming to a to a concert, but it ended up being a um, like a 3 hour show at Caesar's Palace, which was more of a stage show than a concert. So, but it was all these vignettes of different stages of her life from when she first moved to LA and the terrible treatment and trauma she suffered at the hands of music producers through her life and partners and her talking to doctors and dealing with mental health and all that sort of stuff and narcissistic abuse and but then all the positive stuff as well, where people were great to her, and and it goes through and chronicled her story right from the highs and lows of her success, all underpinned with the songs of those moments. So you had like a play between two actors, the song, a dance performance art piece, the song. She's literally there with a whiteboard and a PowerPoint, describing what dealing with a psychopath in your life is like, and it was an amazing, amazing show. I think people were really surprised by what they ended up seeing, and shocked by the earnestness of finally actually openly talking about some of the horrible stuff she'd been through. Um, and then just the song performances were amazing. But at the end of every one of those shows, I had to do a full photo shoot with her. So she's doing this for 3 hours. I'm running, clocking 17,000, steps, going up and down Caesar's Palace, from one side to the other, photographing as a music photographer. And then it's kind of like, show's over, freshen up. Okay, we're doing a photo shoot for Harper's Bazaar. Next night, okay, we're doing a photo shoot for Vogue magazine. Next night we're doing a photo shoot for Nylon, and these were like shoots that I would like spend a lot of time figuring out, have have a team, you know, have a good night's sleep, all that sort of stuff. And we're doing this after a full day of prep and shooting a concert in the 110-degree, Vegas
Yeah.
temperatures. And yeah, and that was like a lot of that was about, really being able to adapt to, we've got to do a shoot for Vogue in the back corridors of a concert venue and make it look like it's something really special, and about somebody who is an icon in the world of music,
Yeah.
And it was very run and gun, very shoot from the hip. I was shooting with Harlow lights all the time because they were just so amazing to just, they've got this light called, sorry, I'm going into a little bit of an advertising thing, but it's more about the, what you do with what you've got,
Yeah.
and because I had work back in LA, I had to travel to and fro, to and fro, to and fro. I think I traveled to Vegas like 6 or 7 times, on Southwest. I didn't want to check bags. I had to get in, get out. I was sometimes going straight from the airport to the venue. And I got sent this light called a Sol, which is basically a flat dish, like a pizza, and I was able to put that light in my backpack with my cameras without having a lighting case and everything. And this hand grip battery that lasts for hours. And that was like bringing the sun into wherever I was shooting. And I was able to just light everything up, create all this beautiful lighting on Lannis. And I was able to blow everything out, and create this studio look in dressing rooms that were messy and so forth. So having a really compact run and gun setup with the cameras, the lenses, and the lighting, to be able to do these high-end shoots after, a sweaty 3 hour performance was, yeah. After 8 concerts of that, I came back to LA and just, laid down on the cold tiles in my apartment for, for 2 days with the AC set to 59 just to recover,
Yeah.
So,
I think it's incredible when you have someone who has the status and the legacy that Alanis has created for
mm,
herself, being
hmm
willing to open up and say,
yeah,
"Hey, it's not all bubblegum and rainbows over here. Like I
yeah,
went through the ringer." So she's sharing
yeah,
this while performing some of the most
yeah,
iconic songs of the time, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
sitting there,
yeah.
you're running all over the place, you're capturing that,
Mm,
you're using the soul, which I have a project called the FICE actually stands for Photography
mm.
Heals Your Soul.
Yes,
So
yeah,
I have
that's
a
great.
project
Mm,
I'm working on called the Photography Heals Your Soul
hmm.
project where I travel and I capture the creators. So I capture
Yeah,
people like yourself. I capture a candid portrait of the photographers.
yeah, yeah,
So we're going to
yeah.
be able to do
That's
that.
amazing. Yeah. Well, I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be a
it's
fun time, and I'll be using a
yeah, yeah,
soul from Harlow
yeah.
to do it.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of their product because it is it's just you know it goes back to your connection with people and things, and there are very, very few companies in the world that create products which you actually are so tangibly beautiful that you form like this weird human connection with the product, and I think that going back from the early days, Apple was always that company for me. I still own the first Apple II computer that I bought in like 1981, and it still
nice.
works, and I'm still in love with it, and I don't very rarely when I mean, the products become a little bit generic these days, but um, it had so much personality and soul, and you wanted to touch it, and Leica cameras are like that as well. And Harlow lights are like that, like whoever's engineering and building their products, like even the wing nut, it's like you just go, this is the most beautiful wing nut I've seen in my life that
Yeah,
tightens, it's just great stuff. So that stuff, I'm a little bit of a lone wolf, so little things like that bring me joy, those
no,
physical, knowing that somebody is actually really focused to put beauty into a practically good product,
yeah.
but they've gone that extra step. I enjoy that. It means a lot to me.
When they first showed up, so this I just signed my third contract with them. So
Hmm.
my first one contract, they showed up. I got opened the box. I pulled one of the
Mm.
pros out,
Mm.
and I
Yeah,
just sat there looking at
and
the
looking at
way
it,
it
yeah,
was manufactured.
yeah, touching
Um,
those leather sides.
yeah, and I just
Yeah.
got their monopod a few months ago.
I've been seeing the ads for that. I haven't got one of those yet. I'm going to have to talk to Kieran. She's been dropping the ball a little bit on that. I've been drooling over those online a bit. Yeah.
It's amazing. It is
Mm,
such a beautiful product, and I myself I just transitioned into shooting Leica. So
hmm.
I sold
Yeah.
everything and I
Hmm.
found, it's funny. It came from a dentist. So I found like an almost new original Leica Q.
Wow.
And it was
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
price point that I wanted, I was comfortable
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
And I bought it and I shot one photo and I was like, I
Mm,
understand what people are
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to growing
It's a
with
game
the
changer.
Leica. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah, best optics in the world, It's just amazing stuff.
yeah. You do everything with, you use the SL system. Is that your main go-to for work?
Yeah. Yeah. SL was I actually started in the early days with the S007. So my first Leica was actually the medium format. But there's a lot of there's a lot of Daniel Radcliffe shots. I would pick up the film camera every now and again with the M4. So there's a bunch of stuff that I shot of him with an M4. So I was dabbling in Leica, but because it was always a rangefinder thing, I never really took it seriously as a workhorse, until I got the 007, and that was like a big lumbersome beat, it's lumbersome beast, the autofocus would be like, "Zzz, zzz," it's like, and you're out there, in the LA riverbed trying to get shots, and it was more a studio camera or more a deliberate camera. When the SL came out, I actually traded all the 007 lenses or lenses and everything. We traded all those up to the SL system, the SL601, which is the first one. And that's a camera that I shot all of Frontier on, and a bunch of work on Star Trek Discovery as well was with that camera. And I was actually giving feedback to Leica about it because I think even at that stage I was working on Longmire as well. We did a book for Longmire, and to this day I don't know many, any actually personally. They'll be out there, I'm sure. But as far as I know, I'm kind of still like the only person doing professional unit stills on major productions with a Leica ASL camera. Um, and I started that in 2017 when, the camera first came out. So 2017, 2018, whatever that year was. And that was primarily on Frontier. And that's where, we were shooting in minus 36 degrees and then in villages. So we're going from rain and where the lenses are icing over to villages that are actually on fire, and going to plus, 100 degrees. So I really gave that camera a rugged field test. And, that's when Leica kind of became interested in my feedback as to its operations, and I had a couple of meetings with them in Westlaw about what I'd like to see with the new model of the cameras with the SL2s and things like that. And slowly a lot of things that was hoping for got implemented, and finally, too much chagrin on their part. I'm sure they finally put a flip up display on the camera on the back so that you don't have to lie in the dirt when you're sort of trying to get those low shots, sort of thing. So, but yeah, Frontier was a really good experience with that camera. It's kind of where I introduced Jason to to the photography. Like he'd already been around Leicas with great photographers like Lenny Kravitz and Matthew Bitton, who I think Matthew shot his wedding years before, and Matthew's a well-known Leica photographer, and right up there with my historical favorite photographers like Lindbergh and stuff like that. Matthew's one of the ones that I really respect. So
Yeah,
um,
we Kieran connected us as well. So it's
yeah,
just a matter of finding
mm,
some free time.
yeah.
He's always so
Yeah,
busy,
yeah.
but
Oh, he's going to be really well worth talking to. His work is amazing and has its own really distinct style.
I just got his book for
But
Christmas. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's I've got a couple of his pieces hanging on my wall too. So yeah. But yeah, those guys all had an influence in Jason. But then I think during Frontier was when he really got a hands-on feel for the camera and went off to New York. And that's when I introduced him to Kieran. And he went off to New York and bought a bunch of gear. And, the rest is kind of history. So.
yeah, he's definitely got a history with the brand for sure.
Mm,
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely. Great ambassador for the company.
oh, 100%. I love the fact that you use a camera that nobody would expect. You
Yeah.
think unit stills photography, people are,
Mm,
they swear by their Sonys, they swear
mm, yeah.
by their Nikon, they swear by Canon, and here you are shooting the Leica SL,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
capturing
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing work, and you're
Mm,
proving that it
yeah.
can be done.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And these cameras like the Sonys and the Canons and the Nikons have been around, in that form factor a lot longer than Leica, so they had a good head start on that. Um, I've kind of said that, using an SL on set is a little bit of work. You have to bend the camera to your will a little bit to get the results. It's a bit hard to beat the incredible laser fast, pin sharp, mind-boggling for autofocus accuracy of a Nikon Z9 or a Sony, like the high-end Sony. I think somebody told me with the Sonys now you can even upload a person's face into the camera and it'll focus on that person. It'll know
Oh
the AI
wow.
will like crazy stuff. So we don't have that with the Leica. It's more of a deliberate camera, but um, I kind of compare it to you're buying a really high quality machine gun or the best sable paintbrush, artisan paintbrush in the world, and that's what the Leica is to me. And that's like, I remember when I was shooting with Canons in LA when I first started, I'd go out with, somebody like, I remember with Carl Urban to I actually shot Carl with Leicas and with Canons, and you go out to the LA Riverbed, and I'd come back with 2,000 Canon shots and 300 Leica shots. And out of the 2,000 Canon shots, I'd be happy with about 10% of them. And out of the 300 Leica shots, I'd be happy with 299 of them, you know. So it's and then then you start talking about the optics, and then come back from something on projects, and you're just a unit stills guy, and people saying, why do your shots look like works of art? And that's a little bit of you as a photographer, but there's just something about the depth and the bokeh and the creaminess from the Leica lenses that nobody can replicate. You know, Nobody in the high tech, um, just the best engineering in Japan on these production lines can't beat those guys in that factory in Wetzlar that you can see when you walk around. It's open the windows and people sort of hand putting together and grinding the edges of lenses. There's no beating that.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
the
comes through your
company,
work.
the company
Yeah.
itself, the history of what they bring to
Mm.
optics is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody
Absolutely.
talks about, my favorite thing I see is when they're like, Leica shooters only shoot photos of their camera.
Yeah.
But the thing about it
True
is
to a point.
that camera is a beautiful work of art,
Yeah, exactly.
you know?
Exactly. They try to use that as an insult, but it's actually has the opposite effect
Yeah.
because you've got this artistic marvel that is also something that when you pick something up, its connection with you, that tangible connection with you, and that connection in your soul makes a difference to the way you work. If
Oh,
you're just picking,
100%.
yeah, when you pick up a camera that's kind of made of plastic and it kind of like the body creaks a little bit when you squeeze it, and it's just a tool versus just this beautiful thing that makes you happy to have it in your hands, and then you're going to create with it. There's nothing better.
Yeah. And I remember we have a event here. It's every third Friday of the month
Mm.
called Coffee Cameras and Things.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Taki KO puts it on. So I went there and I was talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, here, check this out." And he hands me a Q2. And
Mm.
at this point I had refused to put one in my hand because I knew what would
Hmm.
happen.
You know, you'd want to go out and buy one.
And as soon as I felt it, it just felt different.
Mm.
And I mean, I'd
Yeah.
had Fuji medium formats. I've had every body Fuji sold.
Mm.
At that moment, I was shooting on Nikon. I had the ZF and eventually got
Yeah.
a Z9.
Yeah.
Now I have a Leica Q. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It
there's something
it's
about
such a
it.
great it's such a great grab and go camera. It's like you're going out somewhere, but I've used it on, like legitimate shoots, pro shoots where I've just used the Q. And it's, you've got that beautiful f1.7 lens, and like with the Q3 now, 60 megapixels. You've got that beautiful cropping that you can do so that you can frame the shots tight, but all the metadata is there for the original 28 mil shot. And then they've got the Q3 43, which is the 43 mil, which is they're bringing out some nice variants of that camera.
Yeah,
So
I'm getting a little like I was going to do the whole project I was telling you about. That was going to be done on a Nikon Z9 with an 85
mm,
1.4,
yeah,
and
yeah,
now I'm going to do it all on the Q,
yeah,
the
nice,
whole
nice.
thing.
Hey, do you still have the original Q or a
Yep,
Q2?
I have a Q.
Q, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've got the Q Stealth, which I've long-term loaned to a friend. Not sure I'll ever get it back because of the same situation you are. Um, and my Q is a Q2 reporter. I'm a big fan of the green cameras, so I've got the SL2S reporter, the Q2 reporter, and an SL3S are my work cameras. I'm not big into the high megapixel stuff. I like the S cameras. Those those sort of small megapixel ratings are less noisy in the images, and um, the file size handling is much easier as well. So yeah.
Well, here's a question as someone who's going to be very much out of my comfort zone with that
hmm
fixed focal length.
hmm
What is the best advice you can give me as far as being prepared to shoot portrait on the Q?
Um, that's well, I don't think there's a huge limitation in having a fixed lens. I remember reading an interview with Annie Leibovitz a while back, talking about when she first started, and she just was doing a lot of her stuff just with a 50 mm lens, and I can't remember how it went, but it was quite funny. And they were saying, well, how do you get, the variety of images that you need to get for these Rolling Stones if you've only, they said, well, if I need to get close, I take 2 steps in, and if I need to get wide, I'll take 3 steps back.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing I've learned. I've actually gone out on jobs with just one, prime lens, like a 50 mm or a 35, to challenge myself to do what I need to do, but not have a zoom and not mess around and just be, yeah, and it is challenge. Um, I think if you're going to do portraiture, the one thing I would say more than anything is, are you shooting a male or a female? And regardless of which, I wouldn't get too close to their faces unless you're trying to do something that's really cool and weird, So unless you're trying to do that, like that weird sort of thing where their hands are in, or they got, and they're really close and it's wide, because a wide angle, anything under a 50 mm lens is going to fishbowl their face,
Yeah.
and it sort of pulls the eyes apart and they look a little bit odd. So I would make those portraits more of a sort of waist up sort of thing, and also play with the cropping with the camera, because I think you're still, you're still gonna, when you go into 50 mm mode with the digital crop, you're still going to get like a 12 megapixel shot anyway, and it will use that center part of the lens, so you're not getting that distortion, and you still have the integrity of that raw shot as a 28 mm shot, and you can do anything you want with it, but you kind of narrow in a little bit on the subject. I do that with my Q2 all the time. I actually use a crop mode all the time with that. I really like it a lot. But yeah, just experiment. Just don't get too close to people's faces unless you're going for that weird fashion shot look,
Yeah.
and especially with, there was this whole thing, this whole rule. I don't know. Again, the crazy, 16 mm wide shots of supermodels that look great and everything, but people tend to say, try not to shoot a female headshot with anything under a 50 mm lens, because it becomes unflattering. Um, I kind of remember that every now and again and think, yeah, I should experiment with that to see if it's true, like get in the studio and everything. But whatever looks good, man. Headshots are headshots. People need to look great, but they need to look natural. Or I usually like people a little bit side on rather than direct, unless you're trying to do something in particular. It's always good to have a little bit of a twist to give, a bit of shape to the person as well. But I don't think you've got any problems if you're going out to do a proper commercial shoot with a Q, because it's a very capable camera. And it's a challenge. You got that one lens, make it, have some fun stuff, and think more in terms of not so much doing a cliche 10 by 8 headshot, um, as much as think about, the word editor, or think about a shot that you would see of that person in a magazine, and it can show more body, and it can be a little bit offset to the side, and horizontal. Um, and just have fun with the person, get to know them and talk to them, make them laugh and, and connect, that's the most important thing. I think for me, 80% of getting that shot is a conversation you're having leading up to pulling the trigger.
Making them
Yeah.
comfortable in the scenario.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can build that
Yeah.
comfort into the shot, you're going to get
Yeah.
a much better overall
Yeah.
shot. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. I
And,
appreciate that.
yeah. And, photographers, a lot of photographers I see are full of self-importance, the shoot is kind of more about them. If you would be on one of my shoots and see how self-deprecating I am during the shoot, and it just makes people laugh because it's the dichotomy, that sort of weird thing of the comparing the background of your portfolio with you sort of kind of bumbling around like Jerry Lewis. It's a funny thing for them, and it just brings people at ease because everybody's just a normal human.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I would love to be on one of your shoots one day and just
Yeah,
be
let's
there.
make it happen.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just to be a fly on the wall, just to
Where
learn from you.
I actually didn't clock where you are
Uh,
in
uh,
geographically.
Vancouver, BC.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
I
West Coast.
my whole life started in my whole photography career, as far as, becoming this sort of sci-fi go-to person started in Vancouver.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
yeah. Started with Battlestar Galactica.
really? That's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I was at a point where I was kind of, I'd done these shoots like with, Daniel Radcliffe, and thinking that everything was going to change, and nothing did in Australia. We don't really have a great appreciation for our own people here. It's a weird sort of thing that's kind of well known in the world, which is why there are so many, Australian actors in America, sort of thing. And I got to a point where I was doing this real cool stuff and I thought people would care, and nobody cared. I literally couldn't get $50 for a photo shoot here. And, all my paychecks um, were coming from somewhere else. And I'd kind of almost pretty much decided to give up photography. And I was sort of written a list of, my cameras to put on, eBay. And a friend of mine invited me to, I was feeling down, I was depressed, and I decided to, okay, I can't, this isn't, sustainable. And a friend of mine decided, said, hey, hold off on doing that. Come and visit us in Vancouver. We're shooting the last season of Battlestar Galactica. You can come on set. I know you love the show. And so I used the last money that I had in the bank to buy a ticket. And I flew over to Vancouver with my cameras and um, went straight from the airport to set. And, I'm walking around uh, and, um, uh, I feel a tap on my shoulder and I turn around and it's Edward James Olmos.
Legend.
And yeah, so I'm in love with this guy from Blade Runner more than anything.
Yeah.
Like Gaff is one of my favorite characters ever created in film. And um, my friend Loretta, who picks me up from the airport, um, uh, dropped me off, and I'm sort of wandering around, and in that raspy voice of his, he was like, Loretta tells me you're a photographer. I'm like, yes, yeah. I was like the kid that works at the Krusty Burger, whose voice is crackling. He's like, yeah, Mr. Almost. And he was like, you have to do me a favor. You have to shoot uh, everything, because it was when they were releasing they were filming who the final five were, which is a big secret in the story. It's something that everybody wanted to know. There were no longer set photographers or documentary film crews allowed on set for these final episodes. I was the only guy there with a camera taking pictures of all this shit that was going down under the instruction of Edward James Olmos. And you know people are, that information is like, I've got pictures of myself in all these, there's signs with the red cross through it and a camera, and for picture of a guy with a photographer with a little circle with a red line through it. And the news is getting back to NBC in Los Angeles, and they're ringing up, sending security in to have me escorted from set. They're going, "Who the hell is this guy?" And get him the hell off set, you know. And people would there'd be these confrontations, and then Eddie would just come in and said, "Nobody touches this guy."
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, "Okay, Mr. Ramos,"
Yeah.
and that was my month on Battlestar, and I shot like 20,000 images of what I coin as the last days of Battlestar Galactica. Then I got to know those actors like Jamie Bamber and Trish Helfer and Katie Sackhoff, all of which are very, very dear and close friends to this day. They were my first kind of real sci-fi photo shoots. I was doing portrait shoots with them and James Callison outside, saying, "Let's go out for a shoot." And that's where it all began. So every year after that, I came back to North America. I'd go back to my job, work, save money, take a long furlough, come over to the extent of my 3-month visa. I'd spend half that, two-thirds of that time in Vancouver and one-third in LA. I did that every year. Each year, I spent a little bit more time in LA, met people, did free photo shoots, met producers, directors, all of whom wrote me glowing letters of recommendation that helped me get my green card, and that's how it all started. But yeah, I have very, very close love and tie to Vancouver and Toronto.
That's incredible. Um,
Yeah.
I like always hearing that even when you have done these things, I mean, you shot with Daniel Radcliffe and you've done all this
Mm.
stuff, you still had to hustle for the work.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
just
Oh,
handed
yeah.
to you. And I think people get this
No, man.
misconception that when you have
Yeah.
your name gets attached to some of these huge jobs,
Yeah.
that you've made it and you no longer have to
Yeah.
work. You sit back with your
They,
drink and
they
your
all
feet
think you
kicked
got
up.
money because, and a lot of the time we don't post our lows on social media, only our highs. They think all your life is highs and you're loaded, and it's like, um, yeah. No, I still crawl on broken glass to get that next job, man. To this day.
And hey, Vancouver was good to you.
It was, yeah, and still is. I have a lot of dear friends there that, wonderful actors like Alex Pornovic and Mike Dopewood and Ryan Robbins, like guys from Sanctuary and Stargate and Amanda Tapping. They're just so dear to my heart, all those people. Mm.
Uh, it gives me such hope for myself because it's
Mm.
always looking for what did I want this camera, this box that captured light, what did I want it to bring to my life?
Yeah, yeah,
It brought me a
absolutely.
lot. I called in my
Yeah,
therapist
yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
because I was
A
going
great
through
outlet.
a great, hugely hard time in my life when I
Mm.
really connected with the camera. So
Yeah.
part of the show that we always talk is the connection between mental health and your mindset.
Yeah.
Do you feel your creativity plays a big part of that?
Absolutely. I think because you have a way of expressing yourself and how you feel about things through your work, uh, in a world where many of us don't have anybody to talk to about that sort of stuff or feel ashamed to talk about that sort of stuff. Absolutely, being able to have that sort of creative outlet where you can, whether your work tends toward being darker or whether it's just pure portraiture and creativity, when you take that image and you work on that image and you print that image and it just, you're feeling all these things, that are releases that are really important to your mental health, because funnily enough, in this world we're just open and so exposed via social media and TV and all that sort of stuff. We've become a lot more closed off as individuals, so and I've always erred towards being a loner, the shutdown time during COVID was kind of like, thank you. You're telling me I have to stay home in my pajamas and watch Netflix and build Lego for 6 months. That's the law right now. It's like,
Darn.
okay, yeah. Um, I didn't mind that so much, but it is great to be able to um, do something part of it too is when your work brings somebody else joy too, when they see something that you've done for them and it really makes them happy, and that's as a people pleaser, that's what I err to a little bit as well. Um, it gives you a lot of joy doing that, and it's when I really kind of want the next sort of level of that was rediscovering the physical print process, because for the longest time, I never really saw, unless I got a copy of a magazine, everything was on screens, and then when I bought a printer and started printing my own work and other people's work and seeing how holding this physical print, that was just like just mind-bending for me, like how beautiful physical prints that we don't do so much anymore because it's all about this. And a large part of that became gift giving for me too. Um, there's nothing better than, having to go somewhere and at the last minute you realize you're empty-handed, and then making a beautiful, 22 by 17 image of one of your favorite pieces of work, or them and they love Daniel Radcliffe or Alana, so you pick the most beautiful art and you print it on 100% bamboo paper and put it in a mylar bag and give it a gift, and people just like, oh my God, it's just feels so good. And there's another release of just, I think, bringing joy to other people is something that I find is really good for my mental health, you know, because that's kind of like I've always been like that, more than about bringing joy to myself. So that's kind of my way of keeping healthy, in my heart and in my mind too.
I love the fact that you just said bamboo paper. I discovered bamboo paper a
Yeah.
few years ago, and I
Mm,
love the texture. I love the feel.
it's amazing.
It is
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible. Probably one of my
Unfortunately,
favorites.
yeah, the Hanimal
Yep.
bamboo is my favorite. Unfortunately, if you buy it on a roll, it's like a watch spring. It's almost impossible to straighten out, because I work with a friend who has like a Prograph 6400 or something, like a 60-inch printer. So we have these, the bamboo paper on rolls, and it comes out, and once that ink is in the paper too, there's this sort of bimetallic strip vibe about it, and you need two people to unfurl that print, and it's kind of like I can do nothing with this other than give it to the framer to frame, because it's just like that. But the packeted paper, um my favorite paper is their bamboo and their photo rag metallic, just amazing papers.
Yeah. I'm so just starting to work with I just picked up one of those Canon Prisma Pro
Yeah,
200s, and just slowly starting to learn how to
yeah,
recreate the colors and the look
hmm
while it gets printed. It's a science on its own.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's that was the other thing too, is the science of doing that effectively was really interesting, because a screen is an illuminated kind of back projected thing. Piece of paper is reflected light, so there's no way you can ever really get what you see on the screen out on the paper. There's this juggling act of changing the curves, so it kind of doesn't look great on the computer, but the print looks beautiful. So there's a lot of ink and paper used to get that down to a fine art.
100%. Where's the best place for people to find you and interact with you?
Um, I guess, I work, I have my website, which, people can see work. It's a little bit out of date. But I think where I spend most of my time is on Instagram. I'm trying to build my YouTube channel up a little bit in this coming year, but Instagram is kind of where I advertise things that I'm advertised, but where I sort of showcase things that I'm doing, things that are coming up, um, and I do some print sales there as well. But yeah. I happily accept DMs from people on Instagram, and I try to help people with questions they have and inspire, and try to answer all questions there all the time. So IG is where it's at. I mean, if you go there now, you'll see a bit of a bombardment of posting my stories. I have a show opening at Leica on the 15th of January at the gallery in Los Angeles. So you'll see a lot of posts about that. But yeah, I tend to put a lot of my work up on IG and a lot of what I'm doing at the time and behind the scenes footage of my shoots. I was putting a lot of stuff of Alanis on there, behind the change rooms and all that sort of stuff and during the shows. So yeah, at the moment, until something amazing comes along, other than that, it's Instagram at the moment.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time and your willingness to share story and have this
Yeah,
conversation
my
today.
pleasure. Yeah,
Um,
always, man. Thanks for having me.
oh, it's more than a pleasure, my
And
friend.
yeah, and yeah, if there's anything I can never do to help or connect, I will definitely look you on. I'm really overdue for a visit to Vancouver and doing some photo shoots there with friends and catching up with folks. So
Let me
and
know.
it's really down, it's just down the road, So I will be up there this next year. Sometime it's this year, almost this year for us. It's New Year's Eve here, but
Yeah,
and if you're in LA, look me up and we'll come out on some shoots. Be good fun.
it would be amazing. Well, enjoy
Yeah,
New
yeah.
Year's Eve. Enjoy,
Thank you, man.
I wish you all the best in 2026. And,
And you.
I would love to stay in touch and,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sure
we
I'll
have
have
each
some
other's emails
questions for
address,
you.
so yeah,
So,
yeah. Let's just back and forward. Anything you need, man,
yep,
and I'll send you some prints.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you
Nice.
so much. Enjoy your
Take
enjoy your
care.
evening and
Thank you.
we'll talk soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, inspiration, or just a fresh perspective on the creative journey. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. For updates, behind the scene content, and more, please follow us on all social medias at LIFE_OF_PHYS. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources from today's episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living the life of creativity.